a bullet. With me in studio, attorney Dan Pomerantz. Dan, thank you for your time.
My pleasure, Tracy.
Now, I want to get to what your response is to what Ahed's lawyer said earlier in that soundbite, but the question that's being asked over and over again here is for those opposing the occupation as to why the soldiers were there in the first place. What can you tell us?
Well, of course, there's the broad question as to why is Israel in the West Bank at all, and why isn't there an independent Palestinian state, which obviously we're not going to get into. It's a whole other topic. But given that Israel is there, there's debate in Israel, does Israel's presence in the West Bank constitute an occupation or not? There's debate among legal scholars and among Israelis, but what's important is that the Israeli Supreme Court has held since 1974 that whether it's occupation or not, Israel must follow the international laws related to occupation.
All right.
Now, in this particular case, the relevant laws are the Hague Conventions, Articles 42 through 47, which say two critical things. One is that the occupying power, in this case Israel, is responsible for maintaining law and order, which means Israeli soldiers have to be there. And two, it has to be done by soldiers and military courts. It may not be done by civil police or civil courts. So the short answer is that Israeli soldiers are there because international law actually requires them to be there.
Right, so if there are rock throwers there, as they allege, burning ties and throwing rocks, they by law have to be there underneath the Hague Convention.
That's correct.
All right, so now let's go back to what we heard the lawyer saying earlier. What's your response to that?
Well, it sounds like Ms. Lasky, the lawyer for the Tamimi family, said it was more than a regular indictment.
Right.
It sounds like she's saying maybe it was politically motivated, PR motivated, maybe they're trying to make an example out of Ahed Tamimi, something along those lines. I can't read the mind of the prosecutors and know what motivated them in their hearts to bring the indictment, but I can say that the indictment includes legitimate crimes, laws that appear from the video to have been broken, and so it's not a huge stretch to say that she may have in fact broken those laws. Now, whether she has or hasn't will be up to the judge, and the parties will make their arguments and the judge will decide. All
right, so looking at what you're saying as to the fact that the IDF didn't need to arrest her at that time. They can choose to bring this matter to court or not to. Why choose to arrest her now?
Well, it is very common when people commit a crime to sometimes arrest them, let them off with a warning within a few hours or by the next morning. It happens very often in the Palestinian territories, as in any place, any country. We've all been stopped by police and let off with a warning from time to time. In fact, Ahed's own father was arrested in 2012 for a number of crimes he had committed before, but had never been prosecuted for them. He was prosecuted for all those crimes at once because once they finally do decide to bring the prosecution, they do it for all those crimes. It's interesting to note, though, that the counts against him all included crimes of 3 to 5 years potential imprisonment, but for all of it together, he had 13 months.
All right.
And that's what I would expect would probably happen here as well.
So there's been a lot of controversy around this case, around why they've been holding Ahed for so long without charge, why they did rather, and why the IDF arrested her in a midnight or pre-dawn raid. What is the reason for that?
Well, we've seen a number of cases where the IDF has gone to arrest someone and there's a violent resistance to the arrest. It might be people from the neighborhood, it might be rocks, Molotov cocktails, all the way up to, in some cases, even live fire. In this particular case, the town has weekly protests, and sometimes those protests turn into riots. And just a few days before the event on the video, there was in fact some rock throwing, and the rock throwers were inside the Tamimi home. So apparently the IDF felt that if they went during the day, there might be a situation that would put not only soldiers, but also civilians in danger if the soldiers had to respond.
Right.
It's not pleasant to be arrested at night, but the logic of the IDF is that apparently that would make things safer for everybody.
Okay, well, thank you for that insight, Dan Pomerantz.
My pleasure.
All right, we're going out for a break, and of course, the